Greetings and welcome back to Room 303 and our chats with Emily, as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turn now to poem 384. No rack can torture me. The only time the word torture gets used in all of Emily's poetry is right here. Now this is another theodicy. You'll remember our Big Five in Room 303. What does the text say about epistemology, what you can know, ontology, who you are, psychology, the study of the individual mind, sociology, the study of the collective group mind, and then finally the question of theodicy. Why must there be pain? Why must there be suffering? Why must there be torture? And when this poem was initially published, it was titled actually Emancipation in 1890, and for good reason. I mean, we will see this. Here we have Emily as psychologist, or maybe theologian and psychologist, we would say. Our assumptions that you've been following our stuff at lunchstrong.net down that left-hand side chats with Emily, our playlist. I'm hopeful that you've already worked through our set of introductory comment where we talk about our Big Five. And as well, I'm hopeful that you can place this poem within the context of the previous 383 poems we just finished with. 383, Exhilaration is within. Now, many scholars have pointed out that we are back to the crisis, the great crisis of 1862. Although nobody is completely clear what that is. Was it health? Was it physical? Was it social? Was it spiritual? Was it emotional? No one's for sure. The theodicy question, however, is really central here. That is to say, when bad things happen, our tendency is to ask, why did this happen to me? Emily's going to make the argument that we must rather learn to ask, why did this happen for me? And in that regards, we're back to Plato's dualism in this poem. We will see Emily as psychologist, and some have said this is Emily being Freud before there was Freud, or at the same time that there was Freud. This is how she'll say it. No rack can torture me, my soul at liberty behind this mortal bone there knits a bolder one. You cannot prick with saw, nor pierce with scimitar. Two bodies therefore bind one, the other fly, the eagle of his nest, no easier divest, and gain the sky than mayest thou, except thyself may be thine enemy. Captivity is consciousness, so's liberty. Now, of course, that final line, I mean, many of us who are poets would say, if I could write one line like that in my whole poetic career, I would qualify that as, you know, a classic great line, and I would just fold my hands and be done for the rest of my poetic existence. Emily will do this rather remarkably on and on again and again. Notice she'll begin with the idea of torture and the rack. By the way, when we get to poem 793, we'll be playing around with her use of this as well. The last stanza, best grief is tongueless before he'll tell, burn him in the public square as ashes will, possibly if they refuse, how then know, since a rack couldn't coax a syllable now. The rack, of course, the instrument of torture. No rack can torture me. She says, my soul at liberty. Notice the word liberty is the last word of this poem as well. But it won't be totally clear whether she is in fact saying that she has fully gained liberty or not. What she is saying is that you cannot hurt me if I do not allow it myself. Behind this mortal bone, there knits a bolder one. In other words, we're back to Plato's dualism. There's the body, there's the soul, spirit, the mind, whatever, however you wish to say it. And she says, you might be able to hurt my body, but you cannot touch my soul, my spirit, my mind. You, she'll say it this way, cannot prick with saw, nor pierce with scimitar. This is the only time that she ever uses, that short sword. Only time the word gets used. Two bodies, therefore, bind one, the other fly. In other words, you might be able to torture me on the rack physically, but you cannot torture me emotionally, spiritually. I can escape. And then she moves to another word picture, which we're familiar with. She's done this a number of times already, to the idea of birds in flight. The eagle of his nest no easier divest and gain the sky than mayest thou. In other words, you can't limit my flight, except thyself may be thine enemy. And then all of a sudden she pauses. And she goes, while no one else can torture me, I'm certainly capable of torturing myself. And this is the genius of Emily's psychology. She says, captivity is consciousness. Now, she'll use the word consciousness in 21 different poems. When we get to poem 822, we'll pay attention to it again. This is how she says it. This consciousness that is aware of neighbors and the sun will be the one aware of death, and that itself alone is traversing the interval experience between and most profound experiment appointed unto men, how adequate unto itself its property shall be, itself unto itself, and none shall make discovery, and venture most unto itself, the soul condemned to be, attended by a single hound, its own identity. I think Emily's one of the most profound poets of consciousness. And here she'll say it, captivity is consciousness sows liberty. Now, it's fascinating the game that she plays. In poem 786, she'll say there's no drug. No, she says it this way, no drug for consciousness can be. In other words, we're constantly grappling with our thoughts, and the way that those thoughts will limit what we can, what can define us as sometimes our own worst enemy. I can't help but think of Milton's Paradise Lost book 1, when you'll remember that Satan will say the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. We've given full explication at LearnStrong.net over that one. Or do you remember Hamlet when he's talking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in Hamlet 2:2? There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Certainly I think Emily is channeling an idea like this. What is she saying then at 2a? Well, her argument is that consciousness can be both the essence of liberty as well as of bondage, no doubt, right? Depending on your thoughts. Your thoughts can either control you or they can free you, depending on how it works. At 2b, the beauty of this poem is the sounds, the echoes, right, of the sounds, right? So you have rack and can, you have behind and bone and boulder and bodies and be and bind, you have saw and scimitar, you have nest and know, you have eagle and easier, you have then and thou and thyself and thine, you have accept and enemy, you have captivity and consciousness. I mean, just hear all of this, right? What one scholars call the phonic repetitions, the beautiful sounds, yes? It's a fun poem to read. I hope you guys will go and read it on your own. Now, it's possible that Emily is playing with Richard Lovelace's poem to Althea from prison. We've given a lecture on this in some detail already at LearnStrong.net, but let's just enjoy the poem. You'll remember he says it this way, about 1650, when this one was published. Stone walls do not a prison make, nor iron bars a cage. Minds innocent and quiet take that for a hermitage. For I have freedom in my love, and in my soul am free. Angels alone that soar above enjoy such liberty. It's altogether possible that this is a poem that Emily's somehow drawing from or channeling as she's writing this. Finally, to own a poem like this, do you agree that we actually can learn from pain and suffering? And do you agree that, as she says it, captivity is consciousness, sows liberty? I hope that Emily's poetry is challenging you to think a little bit about the power you have over your thoughts. Thank you.